Yo, YouTube, want to talk about trucking and what is OTR and what is over-the-road trucking. But really, I want to get into two facets of OTR trucking. See that? I got some dirty hands. That means I got some clean money. Dirty hands, clean money. We out here trucking right now. I'm trying to deliver this load at this nasty, stinky place right now. I got that little dog hanging out. What's up, big dog? That's my moneymaker right there. She get more attention than I will. Sweet little dog. But look, I want to talk about the two different facets of what I've realized. No one tells you this. No one talks about this. I think most people don't even really know, but this is real experience I've had in the trucking industry of the two different types of OTR trucking that you're going to have. Most people, I think, don't even really realize that, and I call it traditional OTR and OTR, okay? To me, it's just my terms and what I've talked about. OTR in general, before I dive into that, is where you're over the road trucking. You can call it long haul trucking. You do some short hauls too, especially when you get used to driving a lot. Honestly, anything under 1,600 miles is 1,200 miles, especially to me, is a short run, to be honest. But anyway, point is where you're basically away from home and you sleep in the bunk of the sleeper back here, and that's where you sleep overnight and get your breaks and your rest. And you also spend the weekends sleeping in the bunk away from home, away from your normal lifestyle, and you're on the road, baby. And you're working. You're typically working usually 6 days a week. You get a day off on usually Sunday, and it's called a 34-hour reset. It's 34 hours off, and that resets your DOT clock, and you're back to it. Usually about 70 hours a week, 60 to 70. We tend to be maxing it out. If you're making money and running, you want to be pushing that clock. You gotta be working. All right, 70 hours. All right, so let's get into the facets, the niche facets of traditional, what I call traditional OTR and OTR. To me, I learned this by a company that I went to that did refrigerated freight. I think a good company. They're a little underpaid, but it's a comfortable outfit, and they treat you good. It's got a really good little small company feel called Climate Express out of St. Louis, Missouri. Good people. Just didn't make, a little underpaid. I wanted to make more money, and I wanted to run traditional OTR. Now, when I got with them, I thought it was OTR. OTR is OTR. Well, come to find out, not necessarily. Some of these companies, say that they're running OTR, but they're not they are, but they're not. It's not traditional, what I call traditional OTR. So what they're doing is they have their main hub in St. Louis. They do a lot of, I guess it's contract dedicated freight, so they're not getting on the spot market and just running all over the place. But they have their dedicated customers and their contracts. They have their trucks. They have their hub, their main location in St. Louis, Missouri. And basically, you grab a load from St. Louis and you take it out somewhere, and then you grab a backhaul and you come back to St. Louis. Usually that next load, or within a few loads, you're coming back to St. Louis. So anytime you hear a company talk about backhauls, that tends to infer that they are not traditional OTR. And why is that important? Well, if you're kind of new in your career, or you really want to run some miles, you want to be running all over the place. You want to be getting them long miles. You want to be getting them long distance loads. You want to be pushing your clock. You want to be making the most of your time. And you want to go from coast to coast. You want to see all kind of different stuff. And you don't want to be doing short runs and stuff like that. And especially if you are doing the short runs, you want to make more money, preferably per mile, to compensate, because they're making more money on you, by the way, on those shorter runs. So the deal is, when them backhauls, it's not traditional OTR, because what they're doing is they're not maxing out your miles. You're not going coast to coast. And this, on top of this, is a situation where you're basically going to, they run regions. They're not regional because you're not coming home every weekend. Your OTR, you are in the truck over the road. But the difference is that you are grabbing a load out of St. Louis and you're eventually coming back. So whenever you hear about a backhaul, that's common, kind of key term that you're dealing with something that, hey, I'm not going to be running all over the place. Maybe you want to see the sights. That's one of the great things, the honeymoon phase of trucking. You get around, you see the country, and, that's a key distinction. I got into that company wanting to continue to see the country and really get a lot of miles and really be out there, just really be living that lifestyle. And the reality is a lot of those companies that do that, where they're doing backhauls, where they have a main hub where they're picking loads out of, and they're getting a backhaul to come back, because they're servicing their customers in their area of St. Louis. They're picking up loads. Their main hub is St. Louis. So they got their customers in St. Louis, and those loads go over different regions, but it's limited. We weren't going to the West Coast. We weren't going to the Pacific Northwest hardly at all. We weren't going to, the Colorado area. We weren't going to the Northern Plains. We weren't going to a lot of regions, to be honest. And especially as a truck driver, you really want to be getting out west, because that's where the miles are. And you want to be getting them long runs. So that's a key distinction. And traditional OTR is where typically a company is getting loads off of the spot market. They're not doing dedicated like contract freight where they have specific customer relations. It's really where they're dealing with brokers. They're doing what's called brokered freight, brokerages. And these loads are on the spot market. They're anywhere and everywhere at any time. It's just whatever load makes sense at the right time for the right truck, wherever the location is. And you could, with this kind of traditional OTR, you could be running coast to coast. You can be region to region, and you could be doing all kind of stuff. You can even be doing local within that. But basically, you are a free agent. You're not tied to one specific region or limited to, we don't really go out west. We don't have loads going that way. If you hear stuff like that, that's a key distinction, and it's going to be different. You really want to run them miles. If you want to see the country or get them miles, make the money, you might really want to be looking for traditional OTR, where you really are going coast to coast. Not every load. You're going to have loads where it's shorter runs, but, where you're actually going to be anywhere and everywhere. There's no telling. There's not a lane. That's a key distinction. There's lanes, The companies that are running lanes, they have loads that go out a certain interstate or a certain region or a certain customer, and then they come back. But as a traditional OTR, you're going, just because you go west does not guarantee that you're going right back east. You might go west, and then one time you go south down to, the Southwest. And then another time you might go up north up to the Pacific Northwest. And then another time you might dip down to the deep south. And then you might dip back out west. And then you might dip to the northeast. It's just, it's kind of spontaneous in that sense. When you get into these companies that have direct customers, contracted freight, dedicated freight, there's a good time and place for that. But it becomes kind of a deal where, I went to Virginia, that must mean I'm picking up this next load that's probably going to go here. That's kind of lane. That's kind of what you're dealing with in that kind of situation. The broker freight is just random, and it's in the moment, and it could go anywhere at any time. You're not going to know, and it's not going to be consistent in that way. And there's a time and place for both, and I want you truckers to kind of understand the difference. It would have helped me, I ended up only giving them about 5 months. I literally lived in the truck for those 5 months, and then I was out. It just wasn't enough. It honestly kind of burnt me out. I'm gonna tell you right now, I wanted to see more of the country and stuff, so it burnt me out more, because I was seeing the same places a little too much. I was spending so much time on these 2-lane interstates with these lanes that we were running, and there was a lot of construction going on in these lanes. lots of traffic on these specific lanes, these specific interstates we were running, and it was really burning me out. Honestly, it burnt me out more than it did when I was running more miles, working harder, doing, dry van and running all over the country, to be honest with you. Because, the combination of refrigerated freight's not necessarily for me, but also the overnight deliveries of refrigerated freight, and I wasn't seeing enough new stuff to keep me kind of engaged and, feeling good. That's one of the things that keeps me going out here, is the weather and the changing of the sites and being in different places and new places. But they all have their time and place. There's a time and a place to be on that dedicated contract freight, this, that, and the other. Maybe we'll get into that in some other videos. If you learned something, if you enjoyed the video, I appreciate it if you'd leave a like and subscribe. Yeah, we're doing a YouTube thing over here. Appreciate you for watching. I hope you were learning something and engaged. Thanks for checking it out. I'm out.